Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, April the 30th, and here are the headlines for today. Currently, we have a trough set up over the East Coast that's delivering below average temperatures for this time of year. Now, along the southern edge of this trough, we have a strong low pressure system delivering heavy rain to the southern states, and this will likely develop into a nor'easter as we move into the weekend. In its wake, we'll probably see rainfall amounts of 1.5 inches or greater from Texas to South Carolina. However, since we're moving into the month of May, we're not seeing the cold temperatures that accompany a normal nor'easter. Now, if you live in Providence, Rhode Island, and Boston, Massachusetts, you guys will be experiencing rainfall with this nor'easter. Now, as that trough over the Northeast and Midwest propagates to the east, we're going to have a secondary area of troughing that moves into the Great Plains. And this will be around Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, and this will lay the foundation for a severe weather outbreak in the mid-Mississippi Valley. And with the current forecasts in place, this means that we could see severe weather over places such as Illinois, Indiana, even eastern portions of Missouri, western portions of Kentucky, all the way down to the Gulf Coast as we get into Wednesday afternoon next week. Now, starting us off on the day Thursday, and this runs into the day Saturday here, we can see this area of blue east of the Rockies. And it actually builds over, let's say, the Mississippi Valley as we get into the weekend. And this will provide cooler than average temperatures to the Midwest and the Northeast as we go through, let's say, Sunday. This also means that we're going to have a storm track along the outer edge of this trough. And this will extend down from the Great Plains into Texas, and then back east into places such as South Carolina through, let's say, the Saturday-Sunday time frame. And in fact, when we look at the storm system that will be moving from Texas to Florida, a lot of our heavy rainfall will be on the southern edge of this trough, pretty much in this area here from Texas to South Carolina. Now, in contrast, along the west coast, let's say if you're living in Washington State, Oregon State, down to California, back into the Intermountain West, mainly dry conditions for the next couple of days, and above average temperatures, let's say along the western coast of California, up to the western coast of Washington State. And those warm conditions will continue through the weekend if you live in places like Seattle and San Francisco. Now, the big story on Thursday, and this will extend into the weekend, is this developing storm system over Texas. And this will be delivering heavy rainfall from Texas to Louisiana, through southern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, perhaps as far north as South Carolina. And we'll see by the time this storm system moves into South Carolina, significant deepening of that low pressure system. And we'll be seeing anywhere from 1.5 inches to maybe 3 inches of rain through much of the deep south. Now, the next thing I want to point out is this blue line here over much of the Midwest and the Northeast. Again, above that blue line, temperatures are generally below normal, and we're seeing temperatures for daytime highs in the 40s and the 50s here, maybe even some 30s the further north you go. And we'll see overnight lows in the 30s over much of this region here through the weekend. Now, currently, we're looking at the storm track hugging the coastline, let's say through the south here, but then staying just off the coast as we get into, let's say, the Sunday-Monday time frame. And that means that much of the mid-Atlantic and much of the Northeast, especially the interior Northeast, will not be picking up on the heavy rainfall that we're seeing in the south. And of course, like we were talking about before, we can see the lack of rainfall over the west coast here from California up through Washington State. Now, I did want to mention that we will see some snowfall here over central Colorado. So if you're driving through the mountain passes there just to the west of Denver, you'll be picking up on that snowfall in places such as Aspen as you rise into the higher elevations there. Now, it looks like even northern New Mexico could be picking up on some of this snowfall, but again, that will be in the higher mountains there of New Mexico. Now, in contrast to what we were seeing a week ago, a lot of the warm temperatures are being suppressed right towards the Gulf of Mexico. And even Texas, we can see here over the western part of Texas, the temperatures are going to be dropping into, let's say, the 40s for overnight lows as we get into the weekend here. And you can see how the 40s have extended to portions of Missouri, back into Kentucky, and even parts of Virginia as we get into the weekend. And even further to the north still, you start to see these blue colors, right, work into the Great Lakes, even eastward into, let's say, New York State, and the rest of the Northeast. So we're seeing temperatures in the 30s for overnight lows here. Now, meanwhile, off to the west, if you live in, let's say, Seattle, Washington, down to Los Angeles, California, you'll notice that you see some orange and red on the map here. So the big cities here will likely be seeing above normal temperatures in the 60s and 70s through the weekend. Now, one of the things that's going to probably jump out to you on this map is all the purple, right? From Texas to portions of, let's say, eastern North Carolina. So there's a large area here that could potentially pick up as much as 1.5 inches of rainfall. Now, where we have the darker purples over southern Georgia, again, this will be kind of hard for you guys to see. And then again, as you get into southern Mississippi, much of Louisiana, much of southern Texas, the deep purple shows 2 inches of rain or greater, and even some red here over southern Texas. So there's the possibility, at least, of getting up to 4 inches of rain through the day Saturday. Now, over Texas and Louisiana in particular, this will happen earlier. So we're talking about mainly during the day Friday. And then further to the east over Georgia, South Carolina, that will be as we get into the day Saturday. Now, further north still over, let's say, much of North Carolina and Virginia, notice that we have a bit of a dry slot here over these two states. So, again, we could be seeing much less rainfall by comparison here, maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch of rainfall for you guys. And the mountains will do a good deal of breaking apart the rainfall. Again, we have a northern system here that's kind of moving through West Virginia, Pennsylvania, up to New York State. You guys will be seeing 1/2 inch or more in these areas, perhaps up to, let's say, 1 inch of rain in the higher elevations over western Pennsylvania, the Allegheny Plateau in West Virginia, and even over western New York in the higher elevations there. Just off the Great Lakes, we could see over 1 inch of rainfall there. Now, notice that this storm system is going to track off the coast here. It looks like that purple area will be moving well to the east of the Atlantic seaboard. So much of the heavy rainfall that will be associated with that deepening low pressure system will be staying off the coast. And any rainfall will likely be of the light to moderate variety as we get into, let's say, Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, Massachusetts. But again, it'll kind of hug the coast there. It will not be coming in further inland based on the latest model run. So you'll notice as we move from Saturday into the weekend that the deep trough that we had over the mid-Atlantic is going to move off the coast. And this will allow a new area to move out of Canada and start to build into Minnesota and Wisconsin. And we'll notice that we have some areas of low pressure that move out of Alberta and strengthen over the Great Lakes as we move into the early portion of next week. Another thing that we'll notice too is that these areas of troughing will move further and further off to the west. And once we see an area build over the Dakotas as we get into the middle part of next week, that will start to pull up Gulf moisture, perhaps into the mid-Mississippi Valley as we get into the Wednesday, Thursday time frame of next week. Another area that we'll have to watch for potential severe weather is this shortwave trough entering California early next week. This will likely be rainfall to much of western California, especially as we get into the Monday, Tuesday time frame. Also, shortwave troughs, when they move over the Intermountain West, can create a lot of trouble in terms of severe weather. So once that sets up over the states of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, that could set up a significant severe weather outbreak over the Great Plains, perhaps later next week. Now, because of the position of the trough here over the Midwest and the Northeast, that's going to encourage that low pressure system to hug the South Carolina coast, but then push off well to sea. Now, tracking that nor'easter moving well off the coast, that means that we're going to see maybe some light to moderate rainfall in parts of Connecticut, let's say Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, Massachusetts. Definitely the Cape here will be picking up some rainfall. and maybe some light winds. But we won't be seeing, let's say, the extreme winds, heavy rain, heavy snowfall that you would see during the winter months. Again, because the temperatures are just warmer, right, this time of year. But then also the low pressure system is tracking so far to the east, we will not be experiencing significant impacts. However, take note of what follows. We're going to have a low pressure system develop here in the northern Great Plains, perhaps in Minnesota, and that's going to begin to, let's say, move to the south and east with time across the Great Lakes and eventually into the northeast. And this will provide some instability for showers and thunderstorms as we move to, let's say, Monday. Also take note of California and Nevada here. There will be an area of rainfall and perhaps some mountain snow here as we move into the Sunday, Monday time frame. And what's going to be important is if we get a closed off low to form here over California. If that does happen, we'll likely see heavier rains than what this model is currently showing. If that doesn't take place again, this model might be correct in terms of the lighter rainfall that we're seeing associated with that trough moving onshore. And then for the rest of the country here, we can see as we move through, let's say, the Monday time frame, there will be some shower and thunderstorm activity, let's say, extending from Nebraska, sporadically forming in the afternoon for portions of Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, and maybe as far east as West Virginia here as we move into the Monday time frame. However, don't expect much. This is going to be of the scattered afternoon variety. Now, as we move from Tuesday into Wednesday next week, we're going to have this blue area move out of Canada and kind of build into the northern Great Plains and portions of the Midwest. And associated with it, we're going to have a low pressure system that's pretty strong. It's going to be 988 millibars according to this model run. And that's going to bring a lot of instability over the Midwest as we get into, let's say, Wednesday afternoon. And as you can imagine, out ahead of it is where we're going to have the most instability, perhaps to the south and east of that trough. Now, because of this low pressure system over the Great Lakes, we're going to have some clockwise flow around it. And that's going to help to bring up Gulf moisture here from the Gulf states into the Midwest. And that means we're going to have dew points in the middle 60s here along this area. And that's going to be fuel for any thunderstorm that does develop Wednesday afternoon. And that will increase the severe weather potential. Now here's a look at the dew points as we get into Wednesday afternoon. You'll notice this area of yellow indicating dew points in the 60s, extending up to Detroit, Michigan. Another thing to take note of here is that winds are almost out of the south here if we look at Mississippi and Alabama. Now if you look just off to the west, you'll notice that the winds are out of the northwest versus the south. So we're going to have a clear frontal boundary set up here during Wednesday afternoon. Now we know Wednesday is pretty far out, but we could imagine that we could have severe weather extending up from the Gulf states into perhaps southern Michigan here as we get into the day Wednesday. And that could push off to the east, right, as we get into the day Thursday. So places downstream into, let's say, Virginia, North Carolina, down to maybe northern Florida. I would be on the lookout. And I would say even up into the northeast, some places up there could be experiencing severe weather as well. So I'll just be on the lookout. There's at least a potential for severe weather as we get into the later portion of next week. Well, guys, we'll leave it at that today. I hope you enjoyed today's forecast. If you have any questions about what we discussed today, just leave those down in the comments below. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and I hope to see you guys next Monday for the next video. Bye for now.